Hey everybody, it's Candy, aka Brown Eyed Girl 69. How y'all doing? Well, today is Sunday, October the 20th, I believe. Yep, Sunday, October 20th. And I'm here to continue with the Mr. Wolf and Me chapters, series, I should say. Mr. Wolf and Me series, book reading. This is chapter 7, and it's titled House Arrest. Nobody said anything for a long minute. Then I heard Sheriff Cravens breathe out heavily and the creak of his chair as he stirred. "What time would you say that you broke up that dog fight out in your sheep pen?" Dad asked Jordan Aggers. "Between 4:30 and 5:30 sometime," Jordan replied. Dad turned to me. "And what time did you say you and Mr. Wolf were out on Pin Hill?" It almost choked me to have to repeat Jordan Aggers' words, but it was the closest I knew. "It must have been between 4:30 and 5, I said. "It was right up 6 when Mr. Wolf and I got down to the common. At least I thought so, because the lights were coming on by that time." Dad shook his head. "That's a pretty tight time frame. What do you think we should do, Miles?" "There's nothing to do," I told him. "It wasn't Mr. Wolf who killed those sheep. He was with me all the time. It couldn't have been Mr. Wolf." "Yet Jordan here says it was Mr. Wolf, without the shadow of a doubt." "There's no way that you can both be right. What do you think we should do, Jordan?" The young man twisted in his chair and put up a really good show of not liking to say what he did, but he didn't fool me. I just didn't realize that his words were going to hit me that hard. "I think the dog should be done away with, and the sooner the better for all concerned." "No!" I shouted. "You can't do that. How come you think you can come in here and have my dog killed just because you lost a mess of nasty little sheep? You've no right." I could tell from the way Dad leaned forward that he was about to rebuke me, but he never got the chance. It was Jordan Aggers who answered me, his face suddenly redder with fury. "Because I got nothing to lose by lying, kid, and you can't say the same. You got everything to gain by lying your way out of this. Killing your dog isn't going to bring back any dead sheep. It will only keep there from being any more. But if you get away with this, your dog gets off scot-free to kill again. If he was my dog, I'd fight for him too. But I'd sure manage to come up with a better story than a giant-sized groundhog whose body disappears into thin air." Without meaning to, I had tightened my grip on Mr. Wolf's throat. He whimpered softly in complaint. "Dad," I pleaded, "he can't do that. He can't just come in here and take away Mr. Wolf on only his own say-so." "I don't honestly know what anyone can do," Dad said quietly. "Maybe you can tell us the law on this, Jim?" Sheriff Cravens didn't look up as he answered Dad. "An animal can be impounded on a signed complaint by a citizen who has sustained injury or damage to his property, like the sheep in this case. He can't be," he struggled for a phrase and ended up using the same one that Jordan Aggers had, "done away with, without an order from a local magistrate who has weighed both sides of the question." "Then that's what I'll get," Jordan Aggers said. He rose as if he was all settled and he was ready to leave. "There's no way to hold a hearing on this until Monday," Sheriff Cravens reminded him. But he can be impounded," Jordan reminded him. "On a written complaint," the sheriff agreed. "Then you give me the form and I'll sign it right away now, and we'll get that animal put away." "Where would he be impounded?" Dad asked, as if he'd already given up and was ready to do anything they said. "Those cages out there on Nicker's farm," Sheriff Cravens said apologetically. "That's all the facility the town has." "But those were only cages," I protested. "They don't even have roofs on them to keep out the rain. The wind blows right through them, and there are fleas and ticks and everything else left from other dogs. Diseases even, probably. Mr. Wolf is sick. He just had all those stitches. He'd die out there in the rain and the wind like that." "We're only talking about from tonight to Monday. Jordan Agger said in that disgusted voice that suggested that I was a whimpering baby or something. I don't know what else we can do, Miles, Dad told me. I do, I said quickly. We can keep him here like he was on probation or something. We would promise to keep him on his lead all the time he was outside. It's not like he felt good enough to run around anyway. He's sick. You'd agree to that, wouldn't you? I asked Jordan Aggers. You have to be kidding, Jordan Aggers told me curtly. I'm through fooling around. I really mean business now. I want that dog behind bars, preferably in the care of someone who knows how important a mess of that nasty little sheep can be to a fellow making a living. Nickers is a farmer, too. He sounds fine to me. I felt myself blush, but I knew I had asked for that one. When nobody had said anything, he went on angrily. That dog has got to be impounded regular. You said that yourself, Sheriff. If there is a complaint against the dog, he has to be impounded. There's no reason for any special treatment for this kid. Just because I'm who I am and he what he is doesn't mean that his dog should get fancy service. I sure didn't come back to this snobbish little jerkwater town because I wanted to. I came to help Ma out. I know this town. If this was the other way around, you'd be quick enough to slam a dog of mine out there in Nickersfield and let him rot. It's already high time this kid learned how it feels on the other side of the street. The dog goes to the pound. The law is with me. I saw the look of shock on Dad's face being replaced by a kind of sad thoughtfulness. Then he turned to Sheriff Cravens. We aren't asking for special privileges for Mr. Wolf because of who we are. It's simply a matter of being humane to an injured animal. Very pretty, Jordan Aggert said. He was still on his seat, pressing and repressing his wet jacket with the flat of his hand. Can we take the dog with us now, Sheriff? I'll sign the papers down at your office. Sheriff Cravens remained solidly in his chair. Now, let's not rush this along, Jordan. I need to tell you one more thing about law in this township. That writ of complaint against an animal can be only executed if the law officer in the case feels that there is sufficient evidence to justify it. If I acted on every complaint one citizen wanted to sign against another one, there are people around here who would have to have their mail sent down to the jail. I wondered if he was thinking about old Mr. Perkins and his brother-in-law when he said that. I've been listening to all this very carefully, he continued slowly, trying to get a feel for what's fair to everyone concerned. There are still some answered questions in my mind. Then he turned to Dad. Would you ask your wife to come back in here for a minute? Mom stood by Dad's chair, obviously confused as to why she had been sent for. I just have a few questions I want to ask, Sheriff Cravens explained. Tell me exactly what happened Thursday. She looked startled. All day Thursday? She asked. He laughed and shook his head. Just about the beginning of this nut-gathering business. Oh, well, that started Monday, she said. I sort of hinted to Miles that the hickory nuts would be ready and he should go gather some. He didn't want to go. Then on Tuesday, when I suggested it again, he had some other excuse. Dad was grinning. And Wednesday? The sheriff asked. As I remember, he was afraid to go because a storm was coming up that day. Mom explained dryly. Everybody but Jordan Aggers and me looked pretty amused at that. Then what about Thursday? He asked. Mom's jaw came up the way it does when she shifts into high gear. Let's just say that when Miles got off the bus, he was ready to go nutting. I had packed brownies for him to eat on the way and had the nut-gathering bag ready for him to start out. Could you describe that nut-gathering bag? Oh, sure, she said. We always use the same one. It's sort of a homespun mesh, and it has stone ground stenciled on it in brown letters. It's from a mill where I used to buy whole wheat flour up in New Hampshire. That was before Miles got big enough to refuse anything with whole wheat in it. Can you show me that bag? Sheriff Cravens asked. She looked startled and shook her head. I haven't seen it since Miles took it off with him on Thursday. I didn't think about it after he called from Doc Fletcher's, with Mr. Wolf so torn up and all. But you would know the bag if you saw it. Oh, in a minute, she said. Sheriff Cravens heaved himself to his feet and went out to the front door where he had hung his jacket on the hall tree. When he came back, he handed Mom that bag I had taken to the woods. It was wet and had water streaks and was still half full of hickory nuts. Is this the same one? He asked. She nodded and took the bag silently. When Sheriff Cravens looked over at Jordan Agers, his face was kind of sad. Listen, Jordan, try to be fair to the boy and the rest of us here in town. I went out to that clearing in Pin Hill with Miles today, trying to get to the truth. When I looked at that clearing, it was plain that some kind of tussle had gone on there. Now, maybe a half-grown kid would think to falsify evidence like that, but I really doubt it. There was a club there, like he told me he used, and there was blood on the matted leaves on the clearing floor. Those things were pretty hard for him to think to do if he was making up a big fancy lie to cover his dog's guilt. But he didn't even think about this bag of nuts. I just happened to spot it lying off in the woods a ways and went to see what it was. There's not a single hole in Miles' story that I can see. You say there's not a shadow of a doubt about Mr. Wolf's being the sheep killer? I say I have more reason to believe Miles than I do doubt him. On that basis, I can't see putting an injured dog out in October weather in an open cage. I'm putting him here under Miles' dad's supervision in what we can call house arrest. Jordan Agers' face was tight with fear as he turned to me. Okay, kid, you win this round, but you better pray that nobody comes around my flock while you're babying that sheep killer. I don't intend to be caught without a gun out there even one more time. He turned on his heel and strode swiftly to the door. I'll be outside when you're ready to have that complaint signed, he told Sheriff Cravens. When I slammed that door that hard, I had to go back and shut it correctly with Mom standing over me. Dad and Sheriff Cravens exchanged a funny, sad look. He didn't have an easy growing up, that boy, Sheriff Cravens reminded Dad, almost like an apology. He shifted the blame for that around in his mind a little, I'd say. It's probably easier for him, Dad agreed. Now that old Agers is dead and all. The next chapter will be Chapter 8, A Stab in the Back. And until next time, peace, love, hugs, and nugs.